everyone. This is Boomer Life Lessons and Stories, and I'm Ron. And I hope that you've been on this journey with me in my first 3 episodes? This is episode 4. And just so you know, if you've watched all the previous episodes, you saw I'm wearing a green shirt. I do have other clothes besides the green shirt. And I do shower and dress regularly every day. So it's not that I'm wearing the same clothes day in and day out. What is true is I'm making these videos in a series on a single day, and then I'll do another series and on a different day. So just stay with me, and we're going to find out today, what did Heraclitus say about today? And he's a Greek philosopher that lived from 535 BC to 475 BC. So stay tuned and we'll get to that. Before we go to that point, please like, share, and subscribe. That will help me with the YouTube algorithm, and it will help me deliver more videos if you like this content to you in the future. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about Heraclitus, a Greek philosopher. He was a native to Ephesus, and he was a pre-Socrates type philosopher. He said, the only constant is change. That's pretty profound. The only constant is change. That means what's here today is going to be gone tomorrow, right? What is current and popular today will not be current and popular tomorrow. And I'm, of course, exaggerating. Tomorrow is some future date. It's not exactly tomorrow. My wife says, I get to be boss tomorrow. So every time tomorrow comes, I go to her and say, okay, it's my time to be boss. And she says, well, I told you tomorrow. Tomorrow never arrives, it seems, right? Maybe she's just a little smarter than I am. But, you know, it's kind of interesting when I think about my career and I think about my life in general and going through life, my personal life, truly change is constant. And if you're one of those individuals that doesn't like change, you like to get your hands wrapped around your life and control every aspect of your life, and you try to keep it the same, there's a problem with that. Because if you're not experiencing change, you're not growing. You know, I tell friends of mine, we talk about, you know, what technology is today is going to be obsolete tomorrow. You know, the critical technology of today is going to be obsolete tomorrow. But that's true also of people's life skills. Their skills are current today, but if we stop growing and learning today, tomorrow we're going to be obsoleted. So what does that mean in terms of business and having your own business or working for a large corporation? It says that if we don't continue and practice lifelong learning, changing and reinventing ourselves, at some point we may find that we're obsoleted. We no longer have the skills to service the needs of today. And that would be a problem for you if you're working for a corporation. You know, a lot of people, they have some misconceptions about corporations. There is the government, and the government provides social services. They provide that safety net. A safety net is kind of like, you know, you find yourself out of a job, you get unemployment from the government until you find that next job. That's called a safety net. And that's one of the roles of the federal government and the state government, is to provide that safety net for you until you can get back up on your feet and take care of yourself. But the role of a corporation is not to be a social construct. It's not to create a safety net. And sometimes it sounds harsh when you hear it, but a corporation is a living entity. And if it wants to be viable going forward, it has to make a profit, right? Because profit is then turned into new research. New research is turned into new products and services that are germane for today that people have need of. The thing I would point to, and it's a kind of an obtuse type of an example, very large type of example. The reason why you don't see a buggy manufacturer on every corner is buggies kind of went out of mode when the automobile came into being. So the buggies were obsoleted. Now there are buggies running around with horses and people giving people joy rides, right, in a horse and carriage. But as far as being critical to today's environment, they're not. It's not a necessity. Automobiles are, but as rapid mass transportation comes about, in Texas here, they're talking about putting a train between the Dallas-Fort Worth area down into Houston, and it would be one of those perhaps maglev trains that travels at high speed, 200, 300 miles per hour, and it would make the commute between the Dallas-Fort Worth area down to Houston a short ride. Well, in those cases, as we develop better and more efficient mass transportation, perhaps at some point the automobile will become obsolete. A lot of you are going to say, no, never, never. My wife says, if our boat ever comes in, she might get a better car, but her basic transportation and my basic transportation are sufficient, right? But you kind of think about all the expenses that goes into maintaining a car. We're talking about, your driver's license. We're talking about your tags. We're talking about maintenance and care. There's a lot of expense in having a car or two. But mass transportation, as it gets bigger and better, perhaps will give us an alternative. And if that alternative takes hold, it might supersede the necessity of having a car. That could be a future state. I'm not a futurist, so I'm not saying that that's going to happen. But when I traveled to other countries, they had mass transportation around the cities and to other cities, and it was very efficient. You didn't need a car. But this episode is not about mass transportation. It's about the constant change that we experience. I've told my students that if you look at all the engineers and scientists that have ever lived in history, all the engineers and scientists that have ever lived, and you throw into that number all the entrepreneurs and innovators that have ever lived in history, over 99% of them are still alive today. That's a massive amount of critical thinking people that are constantly innovating and contemplating about how we can make things better. And because of that, if you want things to stay the same, I guess you're going to have to get over it. Do I want things to be back like they were in the 80s? No, I think there's great value in the Internet of Things, right? The Internet has made work life a lot more productive and efficient. It has allowed us to get through the COVID environment a lot easier, although it is still challenging for people because of loss of jobs and things of that sort. But it allows people to work at home, right? So that wouldn't have been possible without the Internet. So, the pace of change is accelerating. And that means that what was important and critical to business and in our personal lives back in the 70s wasn't so in the 80s. And what was important and critical for business and our personal life in the 80s and 90s are not the same in the 2000s. And so as we come up that pace of change curve, it's going to change. Life is going to change and be different tomorrow, more so than it was today, because of all the scientists, engineers, and innovators and great thinkers of our time. It's not all about technology. It's about just how people think in order to do things better and easier and to engage with other people. So my point here would be that if you want to grab a hold of your life and manage your life and keep everything the same, you're going to fall behind in what is relevant and important for today. And that would be in skill set and way of thinking and doing your business. So we have to constantly reinvent ourselves as individuals in order to stay relevant to the companies that we may work for. Because if a company is not innovating and doing things better than it was yesterday or last year, that company is on its way out of business. And if that company goes out of business, all those jobs will be lost. So companies believe that they have to innovate to stay relevant, and they have to do so in a Darwinian environment. Now, what is the Darwinian environment? Well, the Darwinian environment is the competitive market space where companies compete for your business, and you're going to gyrate to the company that offers the best product at the best value. And for those companies that say, hey, we've arrived, we don't need to do anything more, well, guess what? There's other companies that's going to leapfrog over that company and provide a better product or service. And they're going to take away their customers. So companies are striving in a Darwinian environment, survival of the fittest, so to speak, and trying to get your attention as the consumer to develop products and services that are relevant to you, that you need in order to do better in your personal life and in your professional life, your business. So if we say we've arrived and we don't need to learn anymore, we're going out of business. We're obsoleting the business, or we're obsoleting ourselves and our skill set. And if you obsolete your skill set in a corporate environment, the companies will no longer have a need of your service. And it's unfortunate because the companies are not there to guarantee you a job. They're there to do business, to turn the crank, to make profit, to create new products and services in order to stay relevant to their customers on an ongoing basis. And guess what? What's another name for a business? The other name for a business is an ongoing concern. That's an economic term. If you're not concerned about the future, you're going out of business. If you're not concerned about your current skill sets and reinventing yourself constantly, because change is constant, then you're not going to be relevant to the business or the workforce. So we have to strive to stay current to what is needed. We don't arrive. We're always arriving. We're always preparing for the future. I really don't want people to look at that as a bad thing. I kind of laugh and think about my nieces and nephews. And I got my undergraduate in 1979, and then I went on to get a few more degrees after that. And my nieces and nephews would look at their Uncle Ronnie and say, he's not out of school yet. Oh my goodness, we're going to have to go to school for our entire life. I kind of laugh at that because all I was doing was staying relevant to the business need. I was constantly reinventing myself by going to school, going to seminars, going to class, learning different things, learning different skill sets, learning different tools. So this is the point of Heraclitus. The only constant is change. And my addendum to that is that if you don't keep up with the pace of change, you'll become obsolete in the workforce. And if you become obsolete in the workforce, it becomes harder and harder for you to find legitimate work. So I would stress to those of you that are listening to me today is embrace change. Try to keep pace with change. Always be arriving by always reinventing yourself, by practicing lifelong learning. And with that, we're going to change now. We're going to end this particular episode. Change is constant. Stay current with change. All the best, and I will see you in the next episode of Boomer Life Lessons and Stories. Take care.